This is the Happy Diabetic Kitchen Podcast, episode number 9. This is the Happy Diabetic Kitchen, the podcast about people who love to eat and cook healthy. This is your guide to the world of healthy cooking and conversation about happy diabetic living and lifestyles, where we turn ordinary ingredients into something extraordinary. Welcome to the kitchen and let's get cooking. Hello everyone, I am Chef Robert Lewis, the Happy Diabetic, and this is the internet's most delicious cooking podcast. I'm here in the kitchen getting ready to fire it up. So, are you ready to get happy? Welcome to Season 2 of the Happy Diabetic Kitchen. This season, we're looking to expand our culinary horizons. We're going to explore foods from a variety of different cultures and talk with some interesting people to bring you new and different perspectives on health and cuisine. One of my main goals this season is to highlight some popular dishes and styles of cuisine and show you how to eat healthy, whether you're cooking at home or ordering food at a restaurant. Hey, Jason, how are you?
I'm doing great.
Awesome. Hey, do you have a favorite cuisine?
There's a couple that are, really close at the top of my list. I would say something that, I'm really craving a lot these days is authentic Mexican, specifically like street tacos with the chopped onion and cilantro. I'm really big on that right now. But yeah, Indian food you can't go wrong with. Anything with a little bit of spice, I guess you could say.
Yeah. So let me ask you this question. How hungry do you get when I mention the words wood-fired pizza? You know, that gourmet, wood, crispy, caramely,
yes,
crusty.
I will say, the last time I had wood-fired pizza, I had maybe the most delicious pizza I've ever had, which was a roasted chicken with onions and banana peppers, of all things.
Wow.
It was amazing.
That sounds amazing, yeah. Well, that's awesome. I've got a really great treat for you in store for this podcast. A very good friend of mine, Chef Brian Olson, who is an amazing wood-fired pizza chef, and that's just really scratching the surface, because Brian is an amazing chef in his own right. He actually runs 2 different restaurants as general manager and chef, and he's going to be our guest on this podcast this week.
Awesome.
Yeah, it'll be an amazing interview, and I'm really excited to share his story and passion about cooking with all of the folks listening on the podcast today.
Yeah, I wonder if any of those people like pizza. What do you think the chances are?
I think the chances are really good that they would.
I think you're probably right.
Yeah. All right, awesome. Well, hey, in this episode, we're going to talk about healthy eating in restaurants, because that seems to be a topic that gets brought up a lot. What are the strategies for eating healthy when you're out to eat?
Yeah. Tricky. I know. Yeah, I've been there before. It's definitely easier at some places than others, wouldn't you say?
Definitely so. So I just thought we'd reach out to some experts and just chat about how to eat healthy in restaurants. We're also going to have the recipe of the podcast, which is an amazing salmon dusted herbed dish that I have that's going to really, really be great, and a whole lot more. So sit back, relax. Let's get going.
All right, let's do it.
So I'm simply thrilled to introduce my guest today in the kitchen, Chef Brian Olson. So Brian, are you ready to get happy?
I'm ready to get happy, sir.
All right, man, let's do it. So let me tell you a little bit about Brian, and then I'm going to let him kind of fill in all the blanks. General manager, executive chef at Central Standard, Burgers, Beer, and Stuff. Managing partner, general manager, executive chef at Crust Stone Oven Pizza. He studied the culinary arts at Le Cordon Bleu. So Brian, for all the happy diabetics listening, please tell us about you personally. We want to get to know you. And give us an overview of your restaurants.
Well, I currently run 2 restaurants. One of them, the first one I opened is Crust Pizzeria. We started with a traditional Neapolitan-style pizza, cooking in a 900-degree oven using San Marzano tomatoes, fresh mozzarella, and 00 flour. Since then, we've advanced into 2 other styles of pizza, a Chicago Tavern Pizza and a Chicago Deep Dish Pizza. But we also do various appetizers, salads, desserts, and whatnot, and bake all of our own breads on premise. And then I recently, about a year and a half ago, acquired Central Standard. Central Standard is kind of a cool burger joint with a very heavy emphasis on craft beer as well. We bake all of the buns fresh at Crust for Central Standard, hand-cut French fries, and we just make as much from scratch as possible for both locations.
Wow, sounds amazing. Okay, awesome. Anything else about you personally we should know about before we get started?
Well, I've been in the restaurant business since I've been 16. Had a knack for food since I've been about 6 or 7. Actually had an interest in it since about then. Really kind of started watching, Graham Kerr and all the oldies.
Sure.
Dan Can Cook.
Yeah, those guys are awesome. Yeah.
So it, great chefs and all those shows. So my love for food kind of started young.
Wow.
It really did.
Okay, like me. So that's awesome. Well, let's get into some cooking, shall we? Let's do it. When did the idea of you actually being a chef as a career, when did that happen?
It was actually kind of funny. I turned 16, and right when I turned 16, I knew I wanted to get a cooking job. So I went up to the local truck stop to Grandma's Kitchen, which is a Heart of America restaurant, and applied. I got the job instantly, and I've been in the kitchen since. But originally I was set to go to Iowa State to become an engineer. I went up after my junior year of high school and got to talk to some architects and engineers and found really that I didn't want to sit behind a computer my whole life. I loved manual labor. I loved cooking, so I kind of backed out of that, and then my parents were like, well, you better do something. And I was like, well, how about I do the Scott program? And they're like, nope, you need to get out of town. You need to get away from all this. You need to go experience life and then figure out what you want to do from there.
Yeah.
So my mom's like, why don't you go look at Le Cordon Bleu in Minneapolis? Because I had family up in that area. And they kind of gave me that shove out the door and said, go do something.
Wow, very cool. I think that's kind of the charge from parents, right? It's time to do something, right? Yeah. So, Brian, you cook many different styles of cooking. Do you have a favorite? Do you have a style that you really like, that you're super passionate about?
I have a few favorites, I would say. Definitely have a love for Italian food. That's kind of the pizza in me kind of coming out. Had a lot of heavy Italian influence kind of growing up with both my folks coming from the Chicagoland area. Then next would probably be Mexican, authentic Mexican cuisine. I've actually learned a lot from my employees, more than anything. I just try and salsa after salsa, and I bring it to my dishwashers or my cleaning ladies. I was like, try this chipotle salsa, try my salsa verde, try this, try that. And I'm just always picking their brains. Even today I was talking to my cleaning lady, Ava, and, we were talking about her mom's red mole. And I almost actually went down to Mexico City. Her mom still lives there. My cleaning lady's like one of 12 children.
Wow.
And so actually I was trying to make a trip down there. I wanted to go learn from her. I was trying to work in a couple of restaurants down there in Mexico City, and really I just kind of wanted to eat all the street food and figure that out. So I do have a love for authentic Mexican. And then probably after that, I'd probably have to say Thai food. So those 3 cuisines are probably my favorite.
Okay, awesome. So we're here at Crust, wood-fired pizza, and I have to tell you, it smells amazing in here. There's like some bread baking going on right now. Something is being baked that smells really good, and I'm very distracted. So I hope I can get over that. You work with some interesting ingredients here at Crust, right? I mean, I've seen your menu. I've seen your postings on Facebook, some of the amazing specials that you run. What's the most interesting ingredient probably you've ever put on a wood-fired pizza? Or maybe some of your favorites?
We do source a lot of stuff. And that smell that you're smelling is actually our fresh baked bread.
Yeah.
We bake everything in-house, like I said. We have a traditional sourdough bread, and we actually use our starter for our Neapolitan pizza.
Oh, wow.
It's about 4 years old at this point. You'll find starters in Europe that are 400 years old at this point.
Wow.
So we make a naturally leavened sourdough, focaccia, traditional ciabatta bread. We make our hamburger buns. We're making a giant pretzel for Central Standard now, and we're always kind of looking to, we look to make everything from scratch.
Yeah.
The most interesting ingredient or some fun ones, I have great resources to pull from. So that's kind of a hard question to answer. I deal with Fortune Fish Company out of Chicago. I deal with Artisan Specialty out of Chicago. I also deal with Thuman Meats, who is out of the New York area as well. So I have an array of things that I can get.
Yeah.
So, whether it's some smoked salmon caviar, phenomenal cured meats from New York, or straight from Italy.
Yeah.
I just have this array of things I can choose from. So, I've also done quite a bit of fine dining cooking. So, I've dealt with everything from sweetbreads, kidneys, doing a beef heart and broccoli salad, you name it.
Wow.
So I've got to handle a lot of stuff that a lot of people wouldn't even fathom of eating. But that's the joy of cooking.
Yeah, it is the joy. And if you're not feeling it yet, I can just tell you that Brian is super passionate and super creative, right? I mean, that's one of the most amazing things. So here at Crust, just quickly run us down, Brian. So what's a Neapolitan style pizza?
Well, for it to be traditional Neapolitan, there are a few guidelines to it. You have to use Caputo 00 flour, or you have to use a 00 flour from Italy. You have to use San Marzano tomatoes, which come from the Mount Vesuvius region of Italy. Because of the ash in the soil, it produces a very, very beautiful San Marzano tomato. I particularly choose to use a Nina brand. I've tried dozens and dozens of other kinds of tomatoes, and the Nina brand is by far the best. I actually got shorted on my supply for about 2 months, and my customers instantly noticed, especially on the margarita.
Interesting.
So we use that. The only fresh mozzarella that's actually certified by the Vera Pizza Napoletana is Grande out of Wisconsin. They're a very high quality product. Phenomenal. I've cut cheese after cheese up against it, and just no one can stack up against Grande.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
So we use that as our fresh mozzarella. And really, if you have those three components right there, ingredient-wise, you have the pizza. And then you have to have the oven that can reach the 900 degrees. Now, that oven at 900 degrees, you must cook the pizza in 90 seconds or less as well for it to be a traditional Neapolitan. So, that's kind of where Crust started. It actually started in my backyard.
You do have a pizza oven in your backyard.
I built one at my old house.
Okay, I remember seeing pictures of that.
And so that was actually a clay-style adobe oven.
Okay.
That my son and I, I think he was about 8 at the time, we actually went out in the yard, got a tarp, and stomped clay and sand together, put together a sand mold, and then actually built the oven. And as the oven dried, you start digging the sand out of the mold. We cut the door out of it, put another layer on it, and about 2 months of curing later, we had an oven. So
that's cool. That's very cool.
So I actually taught myself initially how to do Neapolitan-style pizzas. But then I ended up going out to San Francisco afterwards to get all my certifications. And I trained under Tony Geminani, who was the first, and I think probably still the only American to win in Italy.
Yeah. And he has a pizza school in San Francisco, right?
Yes.
Yeah, right.
International School of Pizza.
Yeah.
So I've been out there twice. I've earned all my certifications from the school already. The first time around, it was Neapolitan, classic Italian, and a Roman-style pizza that I learned. I got all my certifications for that. And then I came back a second time about 2 years later, and I finished up my American styles, which is actually quite a large list. Chicago style alone has 4 different styles. They have a tavern thin crust, they have a deep dish, they have a stuffed crust, and they actually have a cast iron pan that most people don't know about. There's St. Louis style, Detroit style, there's New Haven style, there's New York slices, there's New York like Stromboli's calzones, California style. And then, so that's all the American styles. And then I also got to learn Sicilian pan, and then also a grandma style pan pizza as well.
Wow.
So, great learning experience. Tony's the best in the industry.
Yeah, I've read about him, world-renowned, amazing guy.
Yep.
You're fortunate to have gone through that for sure.
Oh, yeah. And the staff is amazing,
Yeah.
too. I mean, it was just a really great experience both times,
Yeah.
going out there and working with him. But not only working with him, working with his staff.
Awesome.
His staff is phenomenal.
Awesome. So Brian, as a chef, how do you balance cooking and healthy eating and the consumer trends of how people eat in your restaurants? I mean, I'm sure people come in here wanting to modify things for their dietary restrictions. Does that happen often?
Actually, yes, quite a bit. And, as being a business owner in the restaurant business these days, you have to be ready to fulfill any of those needs.
Yeah.
With so many allergies, diet trends, people's personal wants and needs, you have to be ready.
Right.
You got the one consumer that comes in and they want fried cheese and French fries, and they just want heavy,
Right.
And then you have on the other end where they're just looking for something healthy and light.
Right.
We're seeing a lot of gluten allergies, whether they really do have celiacs or not. They're looking for gluten-free alternatives. So at Crust, we do offer a gluten-free crust. We do offer a gluten-free bun at Central Standard as well. But we do have combinations at both restaurants of fresh and light, and maybe something that's a little heavy and everything in between.
Yeah.
Because of today's consumer in the U.S., we have to have a variety of things always available.
Yeah. So Brian, as someone living with type 2 diabetes, I know one thing that I have to focus on is my portions. And I know, and in North America, in the restaurant business, we love to overfeed our customers, right? So how do you feel about somebody coming into your restaurant and sharing? Like ordering an entree and sharing. How do you feel about that?
I really love it. That's how I like to eat. When I go out with my girlfriend or friends or family, I would prefer to order several appetizers and a couple entrees and pass dishes.
Yep.
I like to try different things.
Right.
So I personally enjoy seeing that. And yes, portions are pretty hefty here in the U.S. I wouldn't say that our portions are oversized at the two restaurants, but at the same time, I also offer a 13-inch deep dish that probably weighs about 3.5 4 pounds.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that you have to eat half of it, though, either.
Of course. Everything in moderation, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So I tell people all the time, don't be afraid to go into restaurants and share meals, right? I mean, most restaurateurs, most restaurants, most chefs are going to welcome that kind of behavior, right?
Yep, I would agree.
Yeah.
As much as we want you guys to all order your own entrees and get the tab up a little bit higher, we are seeing a little bit more of moderation here and there, I would say. And even with our side options, so at both locations we do offer asparagus as an option or Brussels sprouts as an option instead of just your French fries or cheese curds or deep fried item that usually rides along with a sandwich these days.
Sure. Or if you have two choices, double up on the veggies, right?
Correct.
Of course. Yeah. Do you have any guilty pleasures, like when no one else is around? What's your guilty food pleasure? Like for me, I'll just confess right now, mac and cheese. I mean, go big or go home. That's my guilty pleasure.
I really hate to say it, but growing up in the Quad Cities, Rudy's is kind of my guilty pleasure.
Yeah. So for those who don't live in this area, that's Mexican, right? It's tacos and burritos and enchiladas.
It is,
Yeah.
but a very Americanized version of it.
Yeah.
Earlier I discussed how much I loved authentic Mexican, and I truly do. I really do. But there's a special place in my heart for that kind of over cheesed up yellow cheese enchilada,
Heavily melted.
The watery hot sauce and everything, and there's a special place in my heart for that.
I get it.
Maybe after a couple too many tequilas the night before, it always tastes the best.
Yeah, I totally get it. So Brian, what don't people know about you that you wish they did?
I would have to say I'm a pretty open book. I don't know. I kind of throw everything out there.
Yeah.
Actually, a lot of my regulars they know who my family are. They ask about my kids. They know that I'm into physical fitness, and I'm just a pretty open guy.
Yeah.
So I really wouldn't say that there's anything out there that I would say I wish people knew about me that they don't.
Yeah. But now let's talk about that physical fitness thing. Let's talk about that. I mean,
Okay.
you kind of have made some changes in the way you eat and the way you exercise, right?
Oh,
so
very much.
tell us a little bit about that, because that's been sort of inspiring to me. We've met at the Y one time, and you took me through some weights, and you kind of got me excited about just looking at my physical fitness differently. So I appreciate you doing that for me. But tell us a little bit about that.
When I was about 29, 30, I hit a point in my life where I was I hit about 250 pounds at the height of 5'8", and my frame really wasn't designed for 250 pounds. But, just over the years of being in the restaurant business, a lot of poor health choices, smoking, not really eating properly. You eat when you can, and when you can, you're eating something usually pretty unhealthy.
Yeah.
I actually got out of the restaurant business for a little bit and was doing food sales with a local company. And was sitting in the car. I was on my feet 80 hours a week, and also I'm sitting in the car for 40 hours a week. And that kind of started right there when I probably 25, 26, and I put on my first 30 or 40 pounds there right away. And then it just kind of kept going. Next thing you know, here I am, 30 years old. I'm 250 pounds, and I just had a realization. I looked at myself in the mirror and was like, if you don't stop this now, it's going to become a real problem.
Yeah.
And not that it wasn't already.
Yeah.
So at that point, I decided to make some life changes and get my physical fitness and my health back on track. And I remember my first run. I tried running a mile. I think I made it about a block, and I felt like I was going to die. And I remember that feeling. I walked the rest of the mile. I came home and laid on my bed, and the room was spinning, and I remember telling myself, I'm like, I never, ever want to feel this way. I never want to be so unhealthy that I can barely walk a mile without getting winded.
Right.
And, that's where all the change happened right there.
You took some ownership.
Yes,
Right.
very much so.
So I will post all the links to Brian's restaurants and some pictures of Brian so you can kind of see his buffness. It's awesome. So, hey, Brian, is there any tool in the kitchen you can't live without?
Well, obviously a chef knife.
Okay.
I do everything with a chef knife.
Yeah.
I really do. That's, that is your main tool in the kitchen.
So what size is that, would you say? Is that like a 9-inch or 12-inch?
I prefer a 10-inch, but depending on what kitchen I'm in, sometimes it's not always available. But usually there's an 8 or 10-inch knife floating around.
Do you have a favorite brand? We're going to get a little geeky here, cutlery. So, Brian, is there a favorite brand?
I'm old school. I love a good German knife.
Yeah.
So I'm slightly biased towards Wusthof.
Oh, yeah.
But you know what? A lot of these new Japanese knives are phenomenal.
Awesome.
And I've got to work with a few of them. Using some of my chef buddies' knives. The Japanese stuff is phenomenal as well. It just depends on your style. I kind of like the old clunky German heavy duty kind of knife.
Me too.
And that's kind of what I grew up using.
Do you have to spend a lot of money to get a good knife?
You get what you pay for.
Okay.
For sure.
Okay.
With anything in life.
Sure.
If you go out, you want to buy a $40 chef knife, well, you got a $40 chef knife. If you go and buy the $140 Wusthof, well, that's what you get. You get a really nice knife.
And you probably have a knife for life.
Yes.
Almost, right?
Well, mine go through quite a bit of use. So
Yeah.
I get about 6 to 8 years out of a Wusthof.
But if you're at home though, right? If you're like the home cook, you might get 10, 15 years out of a good knife like that. Possibly?
Oh yes.
Oh,
easily.
yeah, easily.
As a home knife, depending on how much you do use it, I'd say 10 to 20 years on a solid Wusthof. If you're with heavy use and sharpening and taking care of it, knives do have a life on them, unfortunately. There's some really great stuff out there. Have you ever seen those Middleton-made knives?
I have not. Middleton.
Yes.
Okay.
Phenomenal. He's a solo guy. I forget where he's based out of, but his stuff is phenomenal. But you're looking minimum $800 for an 8-inch chef's knife.
All handmade, right?
All handmade. You most of the time. You can get his just pre-made stuff that he just has out in cases. He does prefer to do custom, so you can choose what kind of handle, what your handle's made out of, what kind of blade it is.
Very cool.
It's really the knife makers that are out there right now are unreal. It's not just the Japanese big brands and stuff like that, or Wustofs and stuff.
Yeah.
You have a lot more options out there.
Wow.
Of these custom-made knives that will last you a lifetime.
So Brian, if you had a cooking tip, one that you could give our listeners at home that might be something that they could take away from today, what would you give them? Like the Chef Brian's secret cooking tip of the world.
My number one cooking tip to anybody is do it over and over and over again. Do it 100 times, do it 1,000 times, and never be satisfied with your final product. I was actually just talking to my baker earlier today, and baking's one of those things where one day you have a triumph, you know, and you're really satisfied with this bread or whatnot that you're working with, but it's just for that day, because as a baker, you're never truly satisfied. You're always trying to make your product better, you know. So a triumph one day, that's all you get. The next day could be totally different results.
Interesting.
Or, you know, it might not come up as well as you thought it was going to, or this or that, you know. So my number one tip is never be satisfied with your final product. Always strive to make your product better.
Wow, that's great advice. That's really good. So, hey, Brian, if we could head to your house right now and look in your refrigerator, what would be some of the things we might find that you couldn't live without in your refrigerator, that you've always got hanging around as part of your kind of arsenal of cooking?
Well, I always had the basics. If you have the basics, you can cook anything. I always keep, obviously, olive oil and butter. I always keep bacon on hand. That's something that I always have. I always have eggs on hand. Because you wouldn't believe how many things you can make with just bacon, eggs. You find a couple of tortillas in the fridge. You know, always keep a variety of Asian ingredients on hand, sesame oils, soy sauces, gochujang, Korean ingredients like that. But I always keep my pantry stocked. More than anything, you know. I try and keep my stuff fresh. I try and buy almost daily for my meals, because I don't want to buy a bag of broccoli and use it 5 days later.
Right.
You know? So I buy pretty much almost daily.
Wow. Okay.
I'll go to Hy-Vee on my way home. I'll grab some pork chops, some asparagus, and then I have my pantry to work with.
Yeah.
You know, whether I want to make it Asian style, Italian, whatever, I always have something. I just need to buy the ingredients for that.
Right. Yeah, awesome. Very cool. Well, hey, Brian, it's been great. It's been great having you in the kitchen. Thanks for joining us. Any last words you want to impart to the happy diabetics out there? Anything you want to add?
Just want to say thank you back for having me today. And for all the listeners out there, I'd say, you know, cook at home. Cook as much as you can, which is terrible coming from a restaurateur.
Yeah, but you know, but you've got some control that way, right? Don't you think?
I agree 100%. Yeah. You know, unfortunately, cooking at home is almost becoming a dying art.
It is.
The days of the Italian grandmother making Sunday gravy and stuff like that, that's fading very quickly in the U.S. People don't carry on their grandmother's traditions anymore.
Right.
If anything, the chefs these days are carrying on those traditions.
Right.
But everyone goes out to eat for everything, you know, when people just don't even cook at home. Like, I was going through Hy-Vee the other day, grabbed a couple steaks, grabbed some asparagus, total came to $14. The cashier looks at me and says, "Boy, someone's eating good today." And I looked at him and I said, "Well, when you go through Wendy's drive-thru tonight and you rack up $17 for your 2 value meals, I'm going to be eating steak for $14."
Yeah, that's a really good point. That's an amazing point. You're right about that. I remember a couple years ago when my kids were younger and they were at home, we were making homemade cookies, and some neighborhood kids were over, and they didn't have any concept about what we were doing. Like, their mothers would buy pre-made cookies. I mean, and they were like into it. They wanted to measure. They wanted to eat the dough, and I mean, I just thought,
it's a great
wow.
activity. It is, especially for family as well.
Yeah.
You can get everyone involved in it.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, everyone sits at the dinner table. That's the best part of cooking.
Right. Okay, Brian, one last question before we get into our game. Are you ready?
Yep.
Okay, so if you could cook and have dinner with anyone, past or present, who would that be?
I would probably have to say my grandpa. I would like to cook a final meal for him. I was able to do one meal for him before his health started turning. Pretty fresh out of culinary school, and I'd love to be able to cook one more meal for him to show him how much I've advanced in my culinary skills.
Yeah.
He was a good man. He was stern, but very affectionate, and he was never afraid to give you a truth. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And I always respected that about him. I remember the first meal I cooked for him, and he was kind of like nitpicking me a little bit about some of the items that I cooked for him. And my dad just looked at me and smiled. He said, "You gotta take it as constructive criticism." And I learned a big lesson right then and there. I was like, not every customer is going to like what I present to them. Everyone's going to have their critiques about things.
Yeah.
So I got to take it with a grain of salt, and I got to improve my product, try and make it to where everybody likes it as much as possible, But people are always going to have their opinions.
Yeah.
But I would love to cook. If I could, I'd cook one more meal for him and see what he had to say.
He would be proud of you, that I know. Well, awesome, Brian. Thanks for being here, man. So I'm going to post on happydiabetic.com blog all of Chef Brian's restaurant links. So if you're in the neighborhood, stop by and say hi. Thanks, Brian. Appreciate it, man.
Hey, thank you, sir.
You're the best.
It's a pleasure.
Okay, so now it's time for the Rapid Fire 411. I'm going to ask Brian some serious questions, and you simply choose your preference. For example, butter or olive oil, riding a bike or hiking. Are you ready?
Yep.
All right, let's do it. So let's just start off. Olive oil or butter?
Butter.
Baked or fried?
Baked.
Waffles or pancakes?
Waffles.
Grilled fish or grilled steak?
Steak.
Chunky or smooth peanut butter?
Chunky.
Okay, Valentine's Day or St. Patrick's Day?
St. Patty's Day.
There you go. Are you a morning person or a night owl?
Both.
Favorite vegetable?
Broccoli.
Puppies or kittens?
Puppies.
Now, this one I think we know, but I'm asking it anyways. Bacon or ice cream?
That's a tough one because ice cream was my love, but I became lactose intolerant, so I'm going to have to say bacon.
Wow, okay, or bacon ice cream. All right, how about coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Superhero or supervillain?
Villain.
Roller coaster or merry-go-rounds?
Roller coaster.
Okay, two more. Chocolate cake or apple pie?
Chocolate cake.
And your all-time favorite pizza topping?
I'm basic. Pepperoni.
Yeah, I'm anchovies. All right, man. Thank you,
Cheers.
Brian. Great to have you with us.
Cool. Thank you, sir.
Okay, it's time for the recipe of the podcast. And of course, y'all know that I love salmon. So this is going to be my grilled, spice-rubbed salmon of love. So let's talk about what's in it. I've got about 1 pound of skin-on salmon. I like to cut it in about 4 4-ounce pieces. I've got 1 teaspoon of extra virgin olive oil, 1/4 teaspoon of sea salt, 1/4 teaspoon of freshly cracked pepper, 1/2 teaspoon of dry basil, 1/2 teaspoon of freshly grated lime zest, 1 tablespoon of red wine vinegar, a teaspoon of honey, a teaspoon of ground cumin, a teaspoon of smoked paprika, and 1 tablespoon of finely chopped fresh oregano, and 4 fresh lime wedges for the garnish. Okay, so let's put it together. So I like to preheat my grill, or you can use a pan on your stovetop on medium-high heat. I'll brush the salmon with the olive oil and season all over it with salt and pepper. Let's just set that aside for now. So in a small bowl, I'm going to combine the basil, and I like to rub it in the palms of my hands just to release the oil. That just kind of rejuvenates the spice and kind of brings it back to life. So we're going to take the basil in a small bowl with lime zest, the vinegar, the honey, the cumin, paprika, and oregano to kind of create the paste. Brush the spice mixture generously over the flesh of the salmon, and I'm going to place it skin side up in an airtight container and let it marinate in the refrigerator for about 15 minutes. That's all you have to do. Next, I'm going to place the salmon skin side up on the oiled, grilled, or grill rack or in my saute pan. We're going to cook until the edges begin to turn pink, about 6 minutes. Flip the salmon, cook for another 3 to 5 minutes or until it reaches what kind of desired doneness you like. Now, a lot of people like salmon kind of cooked medium or pink. I don't like it too pink, but it's up to you. You can always just break the fish open to see how it's done, but it should be nice and flaky. You don't want to overcook it. So then we'll remove the salmon from the grill and we'll serve it with some lime wedges to squeeze over the fish. It's a really simple dish, super simple, super easy, and very delicious. So how are the nutritions on this, the nutritional facts? Well, the serving size is 1 4-ounce piece of salmon. It's about 190 calories, 2 grams of carbohydrates, about 23 grams of protein, 9 grams of fat, 1 gram of dietary fiber. This is just a really great dish, super simple, super easy, and remember, it's all about turning ordinary ingredients into something extraordinary. I'll post the recipe on my website, happydiabetic.com, and enjoy. You're listening to the Happy Diabetic Kitchen Podcast. I'm your host, Chef Robert Lewis, the Happy Diabetic. Be sure to follow me at Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You'll find all my social links at happydiabetic.com or in the description of this episode in your favorite podcast app. If you have a question for me, go to my website, happydiabetic.com, and hit the contact button and say hello. You ask questions, and I'll answer them. They might even become part of the show. If I select your question, I'll send you a cookbook of love. Our podcast is produced and engineered by Jason Lewis. Our theme music by the Happy Diabetic Kitchen Band and yours truly, Chef Robert, on the guitar. And of course, our kitchen mascots, Scout and Tucker, who kind of look a little hungry. So thanks for tuning in, and let me leave you with this thought. Irma Brombeck once said, "Seize the moment." Remember all those women on the Titanic who waved off the dessert cart? Well, so long for now, and remember, no one loves you more than me.